Hi everyone, welcome to another video, and this one's on The Killing, and we're going to be looking at the topic of audience. The Killing clearly is a Danish TV crime drama that is part of the AQA syllabus for A-level media studies, and I hope this video gives you some opportunity to chat things through with your teacher and to think a little bit more about that key concept of audience then. Okay, so if I divide the thoughts of audience into two sections, I suppose, but they are linked, and everything's linked, of course it is. Firstly, let's think about who watches it, and how they're targeted. So, as we know, The Killing is or was shown on BBC 4, and BBC 4 itself only attracts 1% of the population. So who are that 1% in terms of perhaps the demographics and psychographics that we can look at and explore that a little bit more. Some research has been done on TV crime dramas that have been shown on BBC 4. And those that have subtitles have attracted more women. They tend to be older. They tend to be of higher social demographic groups. So in terms of that, we normally talk about ABC1. It may be that here we talk about the social economic groups of AB for The Killing. And I don't know how helpful that is. My classes sometimes say, sort of, what age group is it? Certainly, as soon as we start talking about targeting, we almost have to stereotype the audience, and we can therefore say that young people like crash, bat and wallop, lots of action, lots of high intensity chase scenes, explosions, everything else, and therefore this show doesn't appeal to those. We don't have that. We do have them, but they're not a key feature of the actual programme itself. However, it might be more useful to talk in terms of psychographics, and in terms of that, we might say that The Killing attracts explorers, people that are interested in different cultures, different communities, different languages, clearly, reference to the subtitled version that we have with The Killing. We might also say that succeeders are also attracted to The Killing, and we'll get more onto why that might be in terms of that group in particular being pleased that there is a certain status that's conferred by being an audience of The Killing itself. Okay, so in terms of how many people watched it, it started off a really creditable 470,000 that watched it on BBC 4, opening episode, and that slowly increased so that we finished at around about the 600,000 mark after 20 episodes. And that picture sort of tells its own story in a way, that there was a slow build with this. The reviewers reviewed it really positively, and I think that in itself is a nod to the media theory, the two-step flow. So Paul Lazarsfeld and others came up with this theory a while ago, but it seems to me to be more relevant now in a digital world when we have a vast choice of what we can consume, and we need some help in terms of what to watch and where to spend our media time, really. And reviewers play a key role in that. And I think it's important to note that with The Killing, there after 3 or 4 episodes, it was the newspaper The Guardian who started to publish a blog of audience reaction. So much so they've released subsequently a book of that blog, and I think it tells its own story in a way. The Guardian itself, a big name but a small audience in terms of who actually consumes it. Obviously, being a broadsheet looking at the higher social economic groups, and I think that what you have with that is a certain kudos that comes from watching The Killing. and it's very important, I think, then to think about the work of David Gauntlet and Eva Blumel and Katz in terms of uses and classifications, why people watched it. And why people watched it, I think we can assume, is that actually they felt good about watching it. Did they enjoy it? Yeah, I'm sure they did. Absolutely. I'm sure they enjoyed the slow TV, the red herrings and everything else. But actually, there was a kudos associated with it, a cultural capital associated with watching The Killing that I think in part is the key to its success with its audience. So I think those aspects are really important to consider. I think that the other part of that, I suppose, and linked to the Guardian's work and sort of fostering a chat, I suppose, a general discourse about the actual show itself, was the idea that it wasn't available as a video on demand. Therefore, at the end of each episode, great chat was had, great consternation was had in terms of who might be responsible for Nana Burke-Larson's death. And the red herrings that were a real feature of the show itself just sort of created that talk, that chat, that fandom, as Henry Jenkins would say, that sort of audience, the viewer activism that he talks about, where audiences themselves start to almost publicise the show without any help from the actual producer or distributor itself. We have the other aspects as well. The jumper, of course, achieved legendary status, which helped the show, I think, in terms of that sort of cultish edge to it. You can easily find fan fiction that's available online, and that's all part of that sort of underworld buzz, I suppose, that the show had. Yeah, it didn't achieve millions of viewers, but actually its impact, I think, was quite significant in terms of where we were at. Arguably, what you've got is a 20-series TV crime drama with subtitles. Now, you know, the world, some would argue, is divided between people that have the tolerance of subtitles and maybe even watch subtitled films partly because they want to be a sort of person that watches subtitled films, and there's an appeal there that's important. Interesting to note that Wallander, previously, that almost the daddy of Scandi Noir, was actually taken by the BBC but remade rather than subtitled, and of course that's what happened in America as well. When The Killing went to America, it was remade as a concept, but here, interesting decision taken, keep it as subtitles. No doubt there's a budgetary constraint within that, but I think therefore it sort of says this is the audience that we want to capture here. I suppose the last thing to talk about with audience is audience reception, and of course, being a TV crime drama, we need to talk about Gerbner, and here Gerbner, a refresher on that, sort of claims that people that watch extended amounts of television tend to have a view of the world which is that the world is mean, and quite fearful then of that particular world. Of course, the extent to which they are fearful, that they believe in the mean world, is related to their own circumstances, resonance, and everything else you can see elsewhere. You do your own research on that. What would we say? There's a crime. It's a sexually violent crime that happens, and clearly there are lots of bad people in The Killing. And it's easy to say, well, okay, that if you are a fan of TV crime drama, then what you're doing is immersing yourself in a world which is arguably more violent, more embedded with crime than the real world. There's other ways to view that, aren't there? Our fascination with TV crime drama may come because of our belief that we can experience that world in a safe environment, and far be it that it's not going to create in a sort of Bandura style, I'm going to copycat that violence. It's actually going to have the opposite effect, which is that I'm going to experience that violence cathartically, and I'm all done in terms of that. So I think that looks at it on both levels in that sense. But I mean, that's the nub of reception theory, isn't it? And I've said all that without mentioning Stuart Hall at all, but he's there as lurking in the background of any discussion about how audiences react to the same media text. So it's a short video. It covers some ground in terms of audience, and I just hope that perhaps that these words might have sparked a discussion, thought processes in your own mind, and yeah, that's probably me done.